Hello friends, today we are going to discuss the summary of the story The Selfish Giant, written by famous writer Oscar Wilde. Before we go to the summary of the short story, let us first understand the biography of the writer Oscar Wilde. He was born on 16th of October 1854 and died on 30th of November 1900. He was popularly known as Oscar Wilde, and he was also famous as an Irish poet, short story writer, and playwright. He wrote in different forms throughout 1880s, significantly in the early 1890s. Due to his masterpieces, he became one of the most popular playwrights of London. The story The Selfish Giant is one of the most famous and most anthologized stories for its moral and spiritual significance, written by Oscar Wilde. The theme of the story is the transformation of selfish giant into selfless one. When the story begins, children are described playing in the garden. After returning from the school, every afternoon the children used to play in the garden. The atmosphere of the garden is beautifully described. It was a large, lovely garden with soft green grass. There were beautiful flowers like stars. There were 12 peach trees which in the springtime break into delicate blossoms having pink and purple fruits. The birds sat on the trees sang so sweetly that the children used to stop their game in order to listen to them. The children were very happy while playing in the garden, and they cried to each other, "How happy we are here!" Thus, the garden in the castle of the giant is symbolic of Garden of Eden, that is, paradise. The happiness is the result of children playing happily in the garden. So, what makes the garden as a symbol of paradise, that is God's abode, is children's playing. Check your progress. Who is the author of the short story The Selfish Giant? The answer is Oscar Wilde. What is the theme of the story? The answer is transformation of selfish giant into selfless one. What is giant's garden symbolic of? It is symbolic of Garden of Eden, that is paradise. After a gap of 7 years, one day the giant returns from his friend's house and he notices that some children are playing in his garden without his permission by entering through the gaps of the broken wall. After watching this scene, the giant becomes very angry and he shouts, "What are you doing here?" Listening this, the frightened children run away. The giant says, "My own garden is my own garden, and anyone can understand that, and I will allow nobody to play in it but myself." This suggests that the giant was egoist, and so the giant built a wall around his garden and put a signboard on it saying, "Trespassers will be prosecuted." This means that anybody who will enter in the garden will be punished. The giant was very selfish because of the construction of wall. Now the children had no place to play. So they tried playing on the road, but unlike the grass in the garden, the road was very hard and full of stones. So they did not like it. When the lessons in the school were over, the children used to look at the garden and say, "How happy we were there." As the time passed, spring season arrived. The author personifies spring here as living identity, and his entrance brings happiness. The nature everywhere was full of flowers blossoming and birds singing, but except for those in the giant's garden. It was still like winter in the giant's garden. The garden was lifeless. The birds did not care to sing, and even flowers did not bloom in it. This was all because children did not play there. The snow and frost still covers all the trees, and it looks like spring has forgotten to visit the garden. The giant was confused at this unexpected move. He said to himself, I cannot understand why the spring is so late in coming. I hope there will be change in the weather soon. But the spring never came. The spring thought that the giant was too selfish, and therefore the garden was still covered with wind, frost, and snow. Thus, very dull atmosphere prevailed in the giant's garden. One morning, when the giant was lying awake in his bed, he heard some lovely music. It was so sweet that he thought that the king's musicians were passing by, but actually the birds had started singing in his garden. The giant thought that the spring had finally arrived, so he jumped out of his bed and looked out in his garden. There he saw the most wonderful thing. Through a little hole in the wall, the children crept into his garden and started playing there. He could notice that there were children on every tree in his garden. The trees were also very happy with bearing children on the branches. The flowers finally bloomed and looked like as if they were laughing, and the birds had again started singing. It was a very lovely scene. But in one corner there was a little boy who was crying because he could not climb on the tree. This scene melted the heart of the giant, and he said, I know now how selfish I have been all this time. Now I know why the spring was not coming here. So he goes to the boy, picks him up, and puts him on the tree. He also decides to break down the wall and make his garden as playground for the children to play forever. He was very sorry for what he had done in past. The children saw that the selfish giant had now changed and had now become selfless one. Now the children played all day long in his garden, and in the evening they came to the giants to say him goodbye. But one day the giant asked the children, where was their little companion, the boy whom he had helped to climb the tree? The giant liked that boy the best because he had kissed him. But the children told him that they had never seen him before, and he did not knew where he lived. The giant was very sad knowing this fact. Every afternoon the children came and played with the giant, but the little boy whom the giant loved and most was never seen again. Many years passed, and now the giant had grew very weak. Now he could not play with the children, so he used to sit on his armchair and watch the little children play. He thought, I have many beautiful flowers, but these children are most beautiful flowers. One winter morning, when the giant looked into his window, he saw his favorite boy, whom he loved the most, sitting under a tree. He suddenly rushed to the boy, but found that the boy's hands and legs were covered with the prints of nails. After watching this, the giant asked the boy who dared to injure him, and that he would take his big sword and slay him. But the boy answered that these were the wounds of love. And this the astonished giant asked him, who are you? And he knelt before the boy. The boy was none other than Jesus Christ himself. He smiled at the giant and told him, "You let me play once in your garden. Today you shall come with me to the paradise to play in my garden." So when the children came to play in the afternoon, they found the giant's dead body in the garden covered with white blossoms. Thus, the short story, The Selfish Giant, is a story of transformation of selfish giant into selfless one. It teaches us moral that we should always make other people happy by helping them, and we should not become reason of anybody's sorrow. Following are the questions that the students may practice. Discuss the story, The Selfish Giant, as a transformation of selfish giant into selfless one. The other question, why the giant is called as selfish in the story The Selfish Giant, and explain the symbolic significance of the sentence, "You let me play once in your garden and today you shall come with me," in the story The Selfish Giant. So, thank you very much.